All right, welcome in. We are looking at another scenario for this mock draft. This coming in 4 quarterbacks going in the top 10. This is because the New York Giants posted something to their social media saying, would you prefer Joe Alt or Jayden Daniels, implying that quarterback is squarely in play. Potentially, not that I'm saying the GM is listening to the cues of the social media team, but I do think that it's an interesting conversation to have because Daniel Jones doesn't seem like he's going to stay healthy enough for the Giants long term, and I don't know if it's there necessarily, I don't know if Giant fans are necessarily warm and fuzzy about Daniel Jones right now. But before we hop into it, I do want to say if you guys want to get in on the mock draft contest, I will leave a link in the description down below. You don't have to be a Jet fan, but we're going to do a first round mock draft through Mockout, and you can win yourself a jersey. It could be any jersey you want. I know I have a Jet jersey right here, obviously because Jets channel, but you guys can join. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description down below. But let's move on. Let's talk about this mock draft. Starting out at number 1, we got the Bears selecting Caleb Williams, quarterback from USC. Obviously, this guy has been penciled in as the number 1 pick for quite some time now, whether it's the Bears making it or not. Now, I do think that the Bears will ultimately take Caleb Williams, and I think Justin Fields is bound to be traded somewhere, Falcons, Raiders, Steelers. There's going to be a few different teams that are probably in play for him. But elite accuracy, over 2,000 snaps at quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner, had 3,600 yards this past season, 30 touchdowns, 5 interceptions with a 68% completion percentage. So the guy is lethal accuracy. Unanimous first team All-American, holds this USC single season record for touchdowns with 52. He is definitely more of an off-script thrower. So that's probably something that Jet fans would be a little bit more concerned with because operating within an offense is how you move the ball down the field. And then if you're always going off script, that could lead to some Zach Wilson-esque problems in our mind. Other thing, height might be an issue. 6'1", not the biggest of quarterbacks. And then can he play from under center? He's played exclusively from the shotgun at USC. So something to consider moving forward, but first quarterback off the board. Then we're going to the Commanders. We're going to have them taking Drake May out of UNC, 6'4", dual threat quarterback at 230 pounds. He has nearly 2,000 snaps at quarterback, had 63.3% completion percentage this past year, 3,600 yards, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and then 582 yards on the ground with another 9 touchdowns on the ground. He's got strong arm strength, good off-platform throwing, pretty good accuracy, operates within the offense. They're saying the knock is going to be a little bit more of a slow processor, so can he adjust to the NFL game speed is going to be something we're going to keep an eye on here. Now, it's interesting because the Commanders and Cliff Kingsbury, there's the connection to Caleb Williams. Are they going to try and figure out a way to trade up to number 1? It's possible, but I don't know if it's necessarily a foregone conclusion here. Drake May plays in the air raid offense. Cliff Kingsbury runs their air raid offense. It just seems to line up that way as well. So Drake May coming off the board at number 2. At number 3, we got Marvin Harrison Jr. coming off the board. And this is a fascinating pick for me for the New England Patriots because they may not go quarterback. It's not that they don't need a quarterback, but they may not go quarterback. You've seen how, the Dolphins made the trade down with Tunsil or the trade down with the 49ers, and they're able to, make all these different things happen. Or you have the Jets trading away Jamal Adams, getting a bunch of draft picks. Could the Patriots be in play for a big trade down for a team looking to come up for a quarterback? If we're not making a trade, we're going to say they're just selecting the best player on the board, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr. You can argue that you're not going to be put on the hot seat quite as quickly if you don't go quarterback right out of the gate if you're Gerard Mayo. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. at least gives you a generational type prospect that you can help build around a young quarterback when you do add them. I could see them going after Jacoby Brissett as a placeholder as well. So this is I think this is actually like a good move for the Patriots. 1,600 snaps at wide receiver, 1,200 yards, 14 touchdowns. He spent 80% of his time out wide, 20% of his time in the slot. Elite size, elite hands. When targeted, 120.3 quarterback rating. They're saying he's going to run like a 4.3 40, which is absolutely insane. I don't know if he's actually going to run at the combine, though, because he's pretty much the consensus number 1 wide receiver anyway. So I don't think we're actually going to see that. And then he's not super great at breaking tackles. So something to keep an eye on. You might be able to get him in some arm tackles at the next level. At number 4, we have the Cardinals selecting wide receiver Malik Nabers out of LSU. This guy could be the number 1 wide receiver on the board, if not for Marvin Harrison Jr. They're going to wind up building around Kyler Murray. If you had asked me a year ago, I would say Kyler Murray's getting traded. There's no way this guy is going to stay on this team with the injury he had just had with the ACL and the contract weird thing with the you must study X amount of times per week. I feel like they were in play for a quarterback until Kyler actually played well coming off the ACL. 1,700 snaps at wide receiver for Neighbors. He's going to be more of your like Odell shorter wide receivers, not like a big bodied guy, but he's electric with the ball in his hands. Explosive route runner, 40-inch vertical, deep ball threat, elite yak ability. I'd be tickled pink if any of my teams, not any of my teams, my Jets wound up getting a wide receiver of this caliber. I would be very, very happy for the Cardinals. I think the other route they could go, you could look at offensive tackle with DJ Humphries getting knocked out with, I believe it was an ACL in week 17. So is he going to be obviously probably not available for this upcoming season? So could they want to protect Kyler and go with an offensive tackle? I think that might be where they go later on in this draft. At number 5, we got the Chargers selecting Joe Alt, which does not make me feel good because Joe Alt is someone that I hope slides down a little bit further because I think the Titans are probably going to take an offensive lineman. So my Jets are going to be in a little bit of a weird spot here. But Joe Alt, with Greg Roman going to the Chargers, Harbaugh and Roman talking about really making a stout run game down there, I could see them go with the offensive lineman, add like a Saquon Barkley in free agency, something along those lines, and just allow Herbert to have more time with the ball in his hands, and you can utilize play action more. Now, maybe you can argue that Bowers here and then another position later on would help the running game just as much. I really like Joe Alt. This guy's probably the best offensive lineman in this class. 2,200 snaps at left tackle, has only allowed 4 sacks, 24 pressures, and had 4 penalties over the course of his career. So the guy is an absolute beast. He's a mauler in the run game. You cannot go wrong with Joe Alt, no matter where he ultimately ends up going. At number 6, we have the Giants going with, obviously, Jaden Daniels, because that's what this whole mock is basically about. Fascinating situation with Daniel Jones. Injuries have been a big issue with him. I actually like Daniel Jones. With him paired up with Daboll, I thought he got the turnovers a little bit more under control, but if he can't stay on the field, it's not worth it. And at the time, I actually liked the contract they had signed him to. This year just did not go well for the Giants. 6'4", 210 pounds. I really like Jaden Daniels. I think Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback in this class, if I'm being completely honest. My biggest concern with him is his slight frame. Is he going to be able to withstand the hits that he's taken in college in the NFL? I think he's going to have to learn how to slide. He's going to have to learn how to get out of his own way. Lamar Jackson has done a great job of that. Lamar has slid consistently. He's gotten out of bounds. He's not taking the big hits, and you're seeing him last longer into seasons. And then, occasionally he gets hurt, but it's like some weird stuff like getting stepped on and things like that. 3,800 yards this past year through the air, 1,200 on the ground, 71% completion percentage. He did have an elite wide receiver duo in Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. Heisman Trophy winner this past year, David O'Brien Award winner. He's going to run about a 4.5 40 is what they're projecting at the combine. Elite elusiveness, strong arm, but can he operate from within the pocket, or is he going to look to run if his first read is covered? Either way, I think if you're a New York Giants fan, you got to be pretty excited for Jaden Daniels. Man, that's going to screw up a lot of people throughout this draft process. At number 7, we're talking Olu Fashanu, the left tackle from Penn State, going to the Tennessee Titans. 6'6", 319 pounds. This guy was a team captain and has over 1,300 snaps at left tackle. With their new head coach being an offensive-minded coach and his dad, Bill Callahan, being a offensive line guru, I could see them wanting to go with an offensive lineman here with the Tennessee Titans. Elite pass blocker. Might need to work a little bit on his run blocking. I don't think it's a detriment at the next level, but he's definitely known for his pass blocking. And then as far as penalties go, only 5 penalties over the course of his career. So this guy does not get you in trouble in terms of down and distances. So Olu Fashanu going off the board for the Titans. At number 8, you have the Falcons going with a quarterback, selecting J.J. McCarthy. This is something where I'm hoping this hype for the quarterbacks just continues to push people up the board, because that means better talent falls at other positions towards the New York Jets at number 10. So look, the Falcons, they have Bijan Robinson. They have Drake London. They have Kyle Pitts. They have everything they need in place. They could use a defensive player. I have seen Raheem Morris go to the Falcons, and everyone's projecting Dallas Turner or Jared Verse or some of those edge rusher types. You can't do much without a quarterback. Now, I do think the Falcons are going to be squarely in play for Justin Fields, and I'll have a mock draft where that's comes into play a little bit more in another video. But the Falcons, for any veteran quarterback, really, it doesn't even necessarily have to be Justin Fields. It could be Russell Wilson. It could be Kirk Cousins. They could be likely the top landing spot for any of the vet quarterbacks here. The knocks on J.J. McCarthy, he was in a run-heavy offense, so he was never asked to do a whole lot in terms of like willing his team to win, if you will, with his arm through the air. 72% completion percentage, nearly 3,000 yards through the air, 300 yards on the ground. Has a total of 25 touchdowns this past year with a knock of 7 turnovers? 3 fumbles, 4 interceptions? Deep ball strength and arm strength, both very good. The accuracy is very good. Football IQ, he just hasn't had enough practice or enough reps where he's the guy. And it's not that he can't do it. It's just that we haven't seen him do it because Michigan's offense was really run through the ground over there. And he's 25-1 as a starter. That is something that NFL teams are going to look at and say, this guy finds a way to win. And I could absolutely see a team with like the connection with Scott Pioli, Tom Brady kind of connection from up in New England. Maybe they want to go to the well with Michigan. Quarterback, another time, J.J. McCarthy comes off the board to the Atlanta Falcons. At number 9, this has been a pretty consistent pick for me. Chicago Bears take Rome Odunze, the wide receiver out of Washington. This guy is an elite deep threat. Deep ball contested catches, number 1 in deep catches, number 1 in contested catches, just like incredible. This would be a perfect compliment if I could get him for the New York Jets for Garrett Wilson. But this guy was a team captain. He spent 967 snaps out wide, 318 in the slot. So you can move him all around the board. He had 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns this past year. Man, that Washington receiver core, something special over there with Polk as well. I think Odunze going to the Bears complements DJ Moore really well. I think you pair them with a Caleb Williams at the beginning part of this draft. Now, maybe there's a situation where if one of the quarterbacks falls, the Bears are more inclined to trade back. I think they're more likely to take the best possible player given all the draft capital that they've accumulated over the last couple of years here. If you guys are like me, you're probably sick of all the spam emails and annoying robocalls that you get to your phone. My life has basically become a walking, talking pop-up ad, and it is incredibly frustrating. These are all coming from data brokers, guys that buy your data. First name, last name, email address, home address, health records, relatives' names. All this information is being sold constantly to the highest bidder, and it's incredibly frustrating. That's why the sponsor of our video, Aura, is so incredible. Aura shows me exactly which data brokers are buying and selling my data and automatically opts me out of those lists. So my inbox is getting completely cleared out. I'm able to have my security the way it should be, because you may have some of the services that will protect you, a VPN, antivirus, password managing services. You might have identity theft insurance. Literally all these things come packaged in one app with Aura. Very cool. You'll probably save yourself a crazy ton of money just by shaving off all the different services that you wind up having. Not to mention, like I said, you get that 14-day free trial. Link in the description down below. 100% think you guys should try it, because if you have some of these services, it's like locking your front door but still leaving the back door wide open. So I can't recommend it enough. It has made my life dramatically easier and less of a pop-up ad, as you can imagine. It is incredibly frustrating to have all this data going all over the place. So not only am I seeing less of the spam, but I know my information is being locked down and protected and monitored in a way that I can feel secure about it. So guys, I'm going to leave the description down below with the promo code and with the link to Aura. I highly suggest you at least give the 14-day free trial a run. Thank you so much for sponsoring the channel. That has us moving to the number 10 overall pick. The New York Jets selected Talisé Funga, the Oregon State right tackle. He's 6'6", 334 pounds. This guy was a team captain with over 1,500 snaps at right tackle, and he is an absolute road grader in the run game. He is a mean son of a batch of cookies. This guy will absolutely plant you 6 feet deep in the run game. Now, people may knock some of his pass protection. I don't think it's overly bad, the same way that Fashanu isn't necessarily a bad run blocker. It's just that he shines in the running game, Fuaga does. He dominated the Senior Bowl and only has 12 career penalties to his name. We've heard the Jets connected to him multiple times. He's basically the most popular mocked player to the New York Jets at this particular point in time, assuming the top 2 left tackles are off the board. I would be very happy with this. I think this is the move that you make to kind of offset that Becton pick when you left Wirfs on the board. This is a situation where you're not stretching for a player at a position of need that you deem more valuable, like left tackle, but you're taking the best player available at a very valuable position of need at right tackle, which is, obviously would have been the Wirfs pick back during that draft. I really like Fuaga here, or Funga. I gotta get that name down, but we'll move on. I definitely like this for our New York Jets. At number 11, we're going with the Vikings selecting Dallas Turner, the edge rusher out of Alabama. 6'4", 242 pounds. He has over 1,600 snaps at edge. He had 11 sacks and 55 pressures this past year. Explosive first step and really good in coverage. This is something that I think the Vikings are going to be in a bind for. Danielle Hunter and Marcus Davenport are both free agents coming up right here, so they're going to need an edge presence. So whether it's Dallas Turner or Jared Verse or whoever your flavor of the week is in terms of edge rusher, this is where I think they ultimately end up going. He may need to bulk up a little bit in the NFL. I don't know if you're going to see him necessarily line up in a three-point stance consistently, but I definitely like him coming off the board to the Minnesota Vikings here at number 11. At number 12, not very far behind him, you got edge rusher Jared Verse going to the Broncos. 6'4", 260 pounds, the edge rusher out of FSU. 2 years spent at Albany, 2 years spent at FSU. Had over 1,700 snaps as an edge rusher, 11 sacks, 62 hurries, and 24 stops. This guy has been a very well-rounded edge presence for sure. He's a seasoned or has a seasoned pass rush plan, which means he knows if the tackle's going to counter with X, he's going to do Y, and he's going to continually try to put pressure on that quarterback, whether he's actually getting the sack or just creating a hurry or a pressure. Explosive first step, has a really good dip to get under offensive tackles. I like this guy, and I like relentless motors as well. Guys that don't give up on the play, will tackle players from behind if he has to, but ultimately a very, very good player here for the Denver Broncos. Now, I'm curious to see what they wind up doing as far as quarterback, because if J.J. McCarthy goes in the first round and the Broncos don't have a crazy ton of salary cap space, are they going with a quarterback in the second round? We'll have to wait and see where they ultimately go. At number 13, we got the Raiders taking Terrion Arnold, the cornerback from Alabama, 6 foot tall, 196 pounds. He has over 1,300, nearly 1,400 snaps at cornerback. He has spent the majority of the time out wide. 51.9% completion percentage when targeted, 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and 13 pass breakups. He was first team All-American in 2023. He's great at mirroring wide receivers, has great lateral agility, just knows how to maneuver his leverage and the receiver's leverage to just give himself the upper hand. Great ball tracking ability. You can see that with the pass breakups and the interceptions. He knows how to track the ball. Good versus press man coverage, good in the zone, good against the run, and only 7 penalties over the course of 2 years. That's something I definitely look for in a cornerback. I think the Raiders would be very happy with that type of move, assuming they don't go with a corner or a safety or something like that in the in free agency. I think this is a really good move for them. You would have to imagine they're probably targeting offensive line in free agency if this winds up being the pick here. At number 14, we're going to go with the New Orleans Saints selecting right tackle out of Alabama, J.C. Latham. This guy might be the best right tackle in this class. He's got friggin' tree trunks for thighs. 6'6", 360 pounds. He will throw shades of Mekhi Becton because of that size, but he is definitely carrying his weight in a different capacity than Becton was when he was selected. Latham was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, so I love seeing good players in high school do well in college and then continue to move on to the NFL and continue to be a high draft pick here. He had 135 snaps at right guard, so a little bit of positional flexibility on the right-hand side. He was first team All-SEC, had the 6th hardest strength of schedule of all the offensive tackles that we were looking at, so something that you'll really, I think, like. He did have 21 career penalties, which isn't necessarily great when compared to some of the other offensive tackles, but again, not the worst case scenario over the course of an entire career. I mean, heck, Mekhi Becton this past year had like 22 penalties. So I don't think I'd be too concerned with the penalty bug from J.C. Latham. Hopefully he gets that ironed out. At number 15, we're going with the Colts. They're taking cornerback Nate Wiggins out of Clemson, 6'2", 185 pounds. He has over 1,200 snaps at cornerback, 43.9% completion percentage when targeted, 176 yards allowed this year, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and 4 pass breakups. So basically, this dude was not targeted because of how sticky he was. He creates contested catch opportunities, which allows him to really put a lot of stress on quarterbacks and wide receivers trying to come down with the ball. Good in man coverage, good on deep routes, little bit lacking in the run defender game, but that's something you can work on. Corners aren't necessarily crazy good at the next level with tackling. I mean, the elite ones are, but he can work on that. I'm not too down on him. Disciplined. Only 8 career penalties for Wiggins. I think that's important when you consider the secondary. You don't want to be giving up the long pass interference type plays that you see in the NFL. So Colts get their corner in Nate Wiggins. At number 16, we are going to go with defensive tackle Byron Murphy II out of Texas for the Seattle Seahawks. They get McDonald, their new head coach. I think they're going to want a defensive player in this first year with them. And 6'1", 308 pounds, Byron Murphy is the guy that I would be selecting here. 1,128 snaps in college. He has an explosive first step, knows how to shoot the gaps, the A gaps, B gaps, to force running backs to bounce it outside. And he is really good in pass rush situations where he could just collapse the pocket from the interior and force quarterbacks to get off their mark. If you can get pressure up the A gap, you see it with the best defensive tackles in the league, Chris Jones, Quinnen Williams, Dexter Lawrence, across the board. Pressure up the A gap consistently puts quarterbacks in a bad situation. He had 6 sacks, 45 pressures, 21 stops, and 1 career penalty. This is something that I think you'd be pretty happy with. I think he'll start to rise up more boards as you get closer to the combine as well. Good run defense, good pass rush. He's a little undersized, so he might struggle against double teams at the next level. But overall, I think as a pass rushing presence, you're going to be pretty happy with Byron Murphy here. At number 17, we're going to have the Jaguars selecting cornerback Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. This guy blew up the Senior Bowl, and he really solidified himself as potentially the top corner off the board. Like there's probably like 4 or 5 cornerbacks that I could see in any capacity going off the board first. And he could absolutely be the first one. 2,298 snaps at cornerback. He allowed 27 receptions, 43.8% completion percentage, and 290 yards this past year. He had 14 pass breakups and 1 interception. He did not allow a single touchdown. He was clocked at 23.58 miles an hour. That's insane. And considering Tyreek Hill is clocked at 22 miles an hour, you could just tell that this dude has wheels. Now, I don't know if that speed that they're clocking him at was on a track, because that's going to time drastically different than on a field, but it'll be interesting to see what he runs at the combine in his 40. Ball skills, zone coverage, both there. Man coverage might need a little bit of help there. He's a physical freak with a lot of raw upside. I'm not even concerned. They list man coverage as maybe a little bit of a concern, but he was super sticky at the Senior Bowl, and I don't think it's something you're going to have to be highly concerned with the Jacksonville Jaguars here. The next pick, we got the Bengals taking Brock Bowers. Now, he slid quite a bit. I could see him going anywhere from pick number 5, pick number 10, pick number 15, or pick number 18, I think is going to end up being his floor. This is a win now type selection for the Bengals. You have someone in T. Higgins that's going into a franchise tag season. You're going to have to replace that level of production. You're probably losing Tyler Boyd to free agency, so you need a weapon in some capacity. This pick could absolutely be offensive tackle as well, assuming Jonah Williams doesn't go back to Cincinnati. But I really like Brock Bowers here. I would have no problem with him going earlier than this. So I think the Bengals are going to get a really nice player here. And this is sort of a 2 birds, 1 stone type selection. You have someone that's really good at pass blocking, not as good as a tackle, obviously, but, plus at pass blocking. And then you have someone that can also go out and catch the ball and be an elite weapon with the ball in his hand. So you're getting that weapon, wide receiver, offensive tackle type hybrid in one selection. So I really like this a lot. He lined up 394 times in line and 567 times in the slot. So you're going to be able to move him around like a little chess piece. And he was second in forced missed tackles. So this dude does not go down easily. Big fan of Brock Bowers. No issues there with him going to the Bengals. At number 19, we're going to have the Rams selecting center Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon. He is 6'3", 334 pounds. At 21 years old, this guy might be the best offensive lineman across the board. Now, interior offensive line is not a position you generally take early in drafts because their 5th-year option is going to be that of an offensive line top contract, not of a center or a guard. Meaning, 5th-year option is going to be the price of a premium tackle. So you're going to lose a little bit of that value by making this selection, but I don't think you lose any sleep over it when you get the type of player that Jackson Powers Johnson is. He's played all over the offensive line, and he's literally only played 1 season at center. He has 27 snaps at left guard, 893 snaps at center, 430 snaps at right guard, and he took 5 snaps over at right tackle as well. So a little chess piece on the offensive line that you can move around and do as you see fit. He won the Remington Trophy for best center in the country. He's really good at run blocking, pass blocking, and screen blocking. Like, there's literally nothing this kid isn't good at. And he had 10 career penalties at center. 10 career penalties. Man, I don't know if I wrote my note down right. Is that 10 career penalties or only at center this past year? Either way, he wasn't overly bad in the penalty game. So I really like this pick for the Rams. I think you got to try and keep Matthew Stafford upright as long as possible. He's not as nimble as he once was. So build up that offensive line, continue to run the ball the way you did this past year. I think this is a really sound move for the LA Rams. At number 20, we have the Steelers taking an offensive lineman. Now, this is a switch from my last mock draft where we had Amarius Mims, the bookend Georgia tackle for the Steelers. We're going to take Troy Fautanu. This guy could be a guard at the next level. He played left tackle at Washington, but a lot of people are projecting him to bump inside due to his arm length at the next level. He gave up 3 sacks, 43 pressures, and 16 penalties over the course of 4 years in his career, has over 2,000 snaps at left tackle. And like I said, positional flexibility, offensive tackle, guard. He is a mauling run blocker that is just looking to punish people in the run game. He is a plus level pass blocker, run blocker. His hand placement is what I've seen across multiple scouting reports as needing some improvement. So something to keep an eye on here. You don't want him to get off balance, maybe fall over. So if he can lock on to defenders, he should be a great pick for the Steelers if they want someone with a little bit of positional flexibility, not necessarily sure where you want him to play right off the bat. At number 21, we've got the Dolphins selecting an edge rusher. Now, I've had them going center for a while here just because they're going to lose theirs in free agency, or at least he's got the ace. I think it's an ACL tear towards the end of last year. But we're going with the edge rusher here, Laiatu Latu. God, I love saying that name. 6'4", 261 pounds. He had a neck injury in 2019 that nearly ended his career. He missed 2 seasons of football. I believe it was Washington is where he started and then wound up transferring to UCLA. And he had a hell of a season. Ted Hendricks Award winner for the top edge rusher in the country. He had 62 pressures, 15 sacks, 33 stops, and 3 fumbles. This guy is a monster off the edge. Has multiple pass rush moves, great hand technique. The run defense might have you a little bit concerned, but overall, pass rush is key in the NFL, and you can figure it out in the run defense game. Top 10 pick if it were not for his medicals. I think Dolphins fans are going to be pretty happy with this type of selection, considering you don't know what you're getting out of your pass rush with both Chubb and Jalen Phillips going down with injury this past year. I think this could be a good, smart move for them in the long term. At number 22, we're going with the Philadelphia Eagles selecting Ennis Rakestraw Jr., the cornerback out of Missouri. He is 6 foot tall, 188 pounds, has nearly 2,000 snaps at corner, has a 59.7% completion percentage when targeted, gave up 10 touchdowns, has 1 interception, and 21 pass breakups. So a little bit further down the list in cornerback, rankings or whatever. He's listed as a sticky press man corner. Excellent at turning and finding the ball. Constant communicator in zone coverage. Good against press man. Good in press man. Good in zone coverage. Words are tough today. Run defense, pretty solid. How will he be able to handle stronger wide receivers at the next level? That's probably the biggest concern with him. You have the fear of his, maybe slighter frame. When he goes up against someone like a Mike Evans or a stronger bodied wide receiver, is going to have some problems with it. Something you're going to have to monitor, and maybe you see some more stuff that you like at the combine and the pro days and whatnot. But Eagles bolster their secondary here. I think this is a smart move for them. At number 23, you have the Texans selecting Brian Thomas Jr., the wide receiver out of LSU. This is the second LSU wide receiver off the board in the first round. Jaden Daniels, you had an elite crew with you for sure. 6'4", 205 pounds. This is going to be the complement to the Texans wide receiving core. I think they need that bigger bodied wide receiver. I do think Mike Evans is squarely in play for them for free agency, so this may free up this pick to be a different type of selection, but I don't think you're going to have any issues with Brian Thomas Jr. here if you're the Houston Texans. Over 1,000 yards and 15 touchdowns this past year, played 88% of his snaps out wide, 12% in the slot. Impressive size, speed, and burst. Ball tracking ability, plus underneath and deep routes, both really good. He does need to work on his route tree overall, though. He didn't run a lot of NFL-style routes, I guess is what they're kind of implying here. Is he just a one-year wonder, or is he going to be consistent? Is this a trend that we're starting? I think this is a good roll of the dice for a team like Houston at this point in the first round. This guy could go higher if he had multiple years of this particular type of production. I like this pick a lot for the Houston Texans. At number 24, the Cowboys, I have them going with Tyler Guyton, the tackle out of Oklahoma. This guy has elite size and metrics. His arm length is going to be absolutely enormous. Has 900 snaps at right tackle, so not a crazy ton of snaps. They may wind up losing Tyron Smith in free agency unless he comes back on a team-friendly deal, But overall, I do think Dallas is going to look at their offensive line for the future and make sure they have guys that they can at least develop and feel comfortable with, especially if you're going to wind up paying Dak Prescott like $60 million a year or something like that, is what they're projecting him as. He's 6'7", 328 pounds. So like I said, elite size for a tackle. He only gave up 1 sack, 3 hits, 9 hurries in his career. Impressed at the Senior Bowl. This guy may have won the Senior Bowl in terms of like the tackle prospects. Pass blocking, good. Anchor, strong anchor. You're not moving him. When he sets his feet, not that you want him to set his feet, but when he sets his block, you're not moving this dude. Run blocking could use a little bit of work. And like I said, limited playing time might be raw coming in right off the bat, but I really like this pick for the Dallas Cowboys. At number 25, we have the Packers going Cooper DeJean, the cornerback safety out of Iowa. He's 6'1", 207 pounds. He has 1,500 snaps at the position. Positional flexibility, corner, special team, safety, could move him all over the board. The Packers may be in need of a safety. Could 𝐀𝐟𝐟𝐢𝐥𝐢𝐴 Alexander potentially be, how much longer does he have with Green Bay? I think this is a smart move if you're looking towards the future. He was number 14 on Bruce Feldman's freak list. This past year had 43.5% completion percentage, 194 yards against him, 0 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. This guy is sticky good. Good in zone coverage, good in man coverage. They say he lacks fluidity or less fluidity. So not recovery speed, but he has the recovery speed to close gaps. So the fluidity hasn't been so much of an issue in college as much as it may potentially be in the NFL. But I really like Cooper DeJean. I had him going a lot higher in my last mock draft, so it's going to be interesting to see where this all shakes out. Number 26, we had the Buccaneers going a little bit different route here. Maybe losing Keon Cole, or maybe losing Mike Evans, potentially going into the final year with Chris Godwin. I think they got to look at wide receiver in some capacity. Adonai Mitchell, or A.D. Mitchell, out of Texas is going to be just what the doctor ordered. 6'4", 196 pounds. This guy is not super imposing at that weight and that height, so a smaller frame, but he has 1,500 snaps at the position. He transferred from Georgia to Texas last year. 87% of his snaps taken out wide, 13% in the slot. Has a high IQ in terms of route running. This guy knows how to use his leverage against opposing cornerbacks. Really good ball tracking ability. Concerns with high pointing the ball, but I'm not overly concerned because Texas seemed to go to him whenever they needed a must-have play. I really like him a lot. I would be all on board with this type of move. I think the Buccaneers get a really good wide receiver here with A.D. Mitchell. Number 27, we have the Cardinals going Darius Robinson, defensive lineman out of Missouri. He's 6'5", 286 pounds. This guy is a chess piece on the defensive side of the ball. You can literally move him all over the place. D tackle, edge rusher. He had 867 snaps at D tackle, 631 snaps at edge rusher. He had 42 pressures, 9 sacks, and 27 stops. This guy is a monster. When I think of like how he'll be used for my Jets, we use John Franklin Myers. We bounce him inside, bounce him outside. You use him all over the place, and he basically is a 4-down player, and you use him wherever you need to use him. If you got to get pressure up the A-gap, put him inside. Chess piece on the defensive line, first team all SEC. Blew up the Senior Bowl. Really, really good. Might have been the best defensive player at the Senior Bowl, not named Quinion Mitchell. Pass rush, run stop, both really good. He's over-reliant on his power right now, so he's going to have to make sure he has a little bit more of the pass rush moves or the hand technique going into the NFL because you're going to have some struggles with NFL-caliber tackles. We're going to move on. The Buffalo Bills going with an edge rusher here, Chop Robinson out of Penn State. I think most people have them penciled in for a wide receiver. Keon Coleman, I think, is going to be a very popular pick here. I went with a different route this time. Chop Robinson. 6'3", 250 pounds, over 1,000 snaps at edge rusher, 10 sacks, 87 pressures. Pretty explosive first step. Relentless motor, high effort player. I love the high effort players here because you wind up getting guys that do not give up on plays. How many times have we seen, a running back start cutting one way and then have to cut back the other way, and guys just give up and they're out of position? This guy won't do that. He has a great rip and dip to catch offensive tackles off guard. He does need to work on some of his counter moves because he doesn't necessarily have a great counter, for lack of a better word, to once the D tackle has his hands on them. So elite pass rushing, coverage grade pretty solid, pretty fast coming out of the backfield if you want to cover running backs and tight ends, and then run defense could use a little bit of work. At number 29, we're looking at the Detroit Lions. Selecting center, Zach Frazier. They could use a little bit of help on the interior part of their offensive line. And this is like the Lions basically run their entire team through their offensive line. So keeping it strong makes a lot of sense here for me. Has some guard center flexibility, 3,200 snaps at both those positions. Majority taken at center. He started out as a first-year starter at guard at West Virginia. Played the next 3 years at center. Former wrestler. Knows leverage. That was like the headline of his draft profile was this guy knows how to move people, which is like, it throws me shades of like the replacements with the sumo wrestlers. And they just get guys, let's just get the biggest guys we can to move people. He's a people mover. Better suited for the gap scheme than the run scheme. He doesn't have a ton of lateral flexibility or lateral movement skills, so maybe not someone you want running around sideline to sideline, but keep him in his gap and have him moving forward. I think you'll be just fine. His run blocking is deemed elite or really good. Pass blocking, pretty solid. He's not great when he gets to the next level right now. When he has to put hands on guys in motion, like in space, that's where he struggles a little bit. So high floor type of player, maybe a little bit lower of a ceiling because of that athleticism that just isn't quite there. I think the Lions are going to be pretty happy with the selection here for Zach Frazier. At number 30, we got the Ravens selecting Amarius Mims, right tackle out of Georgia. Baltimore, got to keep our guy, Lamar Jackson, upright. I think this would be a really good move for them. 6'7", 340 pounds. He's a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. He only has 800 snaps at right tackle. And if he had any more snaps, he'd probably be going closer to the top 10. This guy has the elite size and power profile of a great tackle at the next level. And only 1 year as a starter. I think he only started, 8, 9 games? Not a whole lot of starts under his belt, so he's very raw. Very, very raw. 1 penalty in the 30 games that he was a part of. So even though he's had some spot fill-ins and whatnot, not giving up a lot of penalties here. Missed 6 games this past year with an ankle, had 0 sacks and 7 pressures given up. So he's checking a lot of boxes. It's just you got to see, are you confident in the projection of where he could be a few years from now versus where he is right now? I don't think you're going to be too concerned with him. I think if you're taking the best tackle off the best team in the country in Georgia, or arguably the best team in the country, I think you're going to be just fine here with Baltimore. The 49ers, I have them selecting a offensive lineman with a lot of positional flexibility. Graham Barton out of Duke, 6'5", 314 pounds. He took 2,100 snaps at left tackle and over 1,000 snaps at center. This guy can literally play all over the field depending on where you need him. Maybe they want to replace Trent Williams in the coming years. He's getting up there in age. Maybe they want to use him as a center in the time being. 2 sacks, 11 pressures, and 7 penalties. So really not getting penalized too much here. Due to arm length, he's probably going to be more of an interior offensive lineman, but at least having that positional flexibility has allowed teams like the Jets, when we lose our offensive tackles, to kick like an AVT, who is projected as a guard at the next level, out to tackle. So I think it's a worthwhile swing here for them. He has agility, spatial intelligence in the zone scheme. Footwork leaves him susceptible to edge rushers, which is why they probably project him on the inside here. Pass blocking, run blocking, both good. 22 penalties over the course of his 4-year career. So averaging about, just under 6 penalties a year. Not the worst case scenario for Graham Barton. I think this would be a good pick if you want to keep Brock Purdy upright. Their right guard might be the reason why they did not win the Super Bowl this past year. Not entirely, but he got blown up. Not blown up. He went the wrong way, made the wrong decision. And then Chris Jones came barreling in, and Brock Purdy didn't have enough time to throw the ball. So Graham Barton here coming off the board for the 49ers. And at pick number 32, we got the Chiefs going with Troy Franklin, wide receiver out of Oregon. I really like Troy Franklin a lot. 6'3", 187 pounds. He has over 1,700 snaps of wide receiver, 79% of the time out wide, 21% in the slot. The Chiefs need a wide receiver. They were able to make do and obviously win the Super Bowl this past year, but they're still looking for that replacement for Tyreek Hill. Do they have enough on the roster right now? I don't think Kadarius Toney is that. I don't think Mecole Hardman is necessarily that. I think Troy Franklin will get you that number 1 wide receiver. He had 1,300 yards, nearly 1,400 yards this past year and 14 touchdowns. He was first team All Pac-12 in 2023 and second team All Pac-12 in 2022. Deep route runner, takes the top off of defenses. Sound a little bit like Tyreek Hill, just a little bit taller. Good route runner, long strider, so gets down the field very, very fast. He beats zone coverage really quickly. He needs to work on adding a little bit of weight at 6'3", 187 pounds. You'd probably want to see him a little bit heavier, closer to that 200 mark. and he's not good at contested catches right now. So that's something that you don't want to have to put him in. You don't want like back shoulder throws or comeback routes, things of that nature. You want to see him burn past a corner or a safety and then let him go make a play deep down the field. I like this move a lot for the Kansas City Chiefs. So boys and girls, let me know what you think about that mock draft down below in the comment section. Do you think your team should have gone with a different player? Do you think it's even likely that 4 quarterbacks ultimately end up going in the top 10? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.